Hey friends, Dean here with some exciting news to share. You can now buy us a coffee. That's right. You can help support independent content creators like us by becoming a member of the 3324 Green Room at buymeacoffee.com/3324. Our episodes will always be free and that will not change, but your support at buymeacoffee.com/3324 will help us continue to bring you the best in music and movie podcasting, in our humble opinion. As a Green Room supporter, you'll not only have our undying gratitude, but you'll also be able to vote on which episodes we record and receive other perks for as low as $3 per month. That's the price of a cup of coffee. There's absolutely no obligation, and nothing about the show will change. It's not going behind a paywall. Go to buymeacoffee.com/3324 for all the details. The link will be in the show notes of every episode as well. We'll see you in the Green Room. Set your strawberry alarm clock and spread around some incense and peppermints as we bring you our top 5 psychedelic songs of the 60s. Stay with us.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff. And Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast, your premier home of witty intros.
Was that an intro or was it a pick? I'm curious.
That's a good. That's very interesting. Could be some foreshadowing or just some witty banter, and
we'll see.
It's the appetizer. Our openers are the appetizer to what you can expect. Hopefully,
I'm just really excited to have another top 5.
We've kind of ran dry a little bit, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So
we invited our good friend Robert back. Rob
DiStefano, how are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back for this one too. This is a good one. I like this.
You were on our last top 5, so that's why we hadn't done it in so long. We had to kind of.
And we had a blast with that one.
We did. So we're looking forward to this one. This is going to be a fun one. If this is your first episode checking us out, there's a whole bunch of other top 5s that we've done. So they're back there waiting. Scroll through. You'll see them peppered throughout our listing of episodes. So we've got a lot of great ones. And as we've been doing recently, we will make these picks into a Spotify playlist, and we will put a link in the show notes for that, so you can enjoy it as well. And then we would ask you to give us your picks. If you're listening on your favorite podcast provider in the app, on your phone, your mobile device, there should be a message me button or text us or whatever it is. You can do it right there, or you can hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, and give us your picks as well. We'd love to, and then we'll add them to that
playlist,
dynamic Spotify playlist. Yeah, which is pretty neat. I love doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it's always good because this way we kind of. Again, expand our circle a little bit and get some things that we may not have thought of.
That's right. It's always nice to have more input. So,
yeah. It's always a fun one. This is an interesting subject. When we think about the 60s. I mean, it was flower power. It was the Beatles era. There was the British invasion, Rob, right? And then there was like psychedelic music.
Yeah, it's. It spawned a lot of great music. A lot of good bands came about from that. Good instrumentals, everything. It sort of took music in a different direction.
Yeah, and it hit all genres. Things got experimental, but I was thinking about it today, Eric, and it's kind of like this is almost a genre of music that was influenced by the social upheaval of the times, right? Because that summer of love, and then it became expand your mind, right? Tune in, turn on, tune out, whatever it was. And people became experimenting with drugs and LSD and whatnot. Then there became psychedelic music, almost music to either influenced by or to accompany that trip, right?
That experience, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the way I think it was also a lot had to do with the way it was recorded. The experimental nature of recording at the time too. So you had the Beatles, of course, were they kind of got that rolling, but other bands were doing it as well, and just sort of, and a lot of you had a lot of other bands that were more or less covering certain songs as well.
And also
putting that psychedelic spin
and putting that spin on it, exactly.
Sometimes making them almost unrecognizable. I can think of one song in particular, and maybe it'll be on the list.
And also bringing in different instruments.
Yeah. Exotic stuff that you never thought would be on a pop or rock song and again, like you mentioned, Dean, different genres too. I mean, there's a lot of different types of psychedelic. You got your rock, you got even jazz was doing it, incorporating that spacey sort of sound. And but of course you had pop music and
pop soul.
Everybody was in it. Yep.
Yeah, it was just kind of like that wave. Like I said, social upheaval was happening where back in the 50s, Marlon Brando and James Dean were like the punks and the hoodlums, right? And then the Beatles that was nothing compared to the whole hippie movement. But the hair was really long. People, not showering or just looked, like they rolled out of bed. And then it just became, like I said, experimenting and expanding your mind. Yeah. And then this music was set to it or inspired by it. So we're going to give you our top 5 plus a couple of honorable mentions, which we like to do. I'm going to say there's one band that I stayed away from because I think Eric is going to go with it. And back in the day, like when we first started doing top 5s, we used to try and predict. It didn't work out well, so we kind of dropped it. We used to try and predict what we were going to be picking. But in this case, I have an idea. I think I have an idea, so I stayed away from it just to clear the road for him. So
we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see if Rob kind of goes.
Maybe Rob. I mean, you got 13, 14 songs apparently, Rob. I think you're a big fan of this type of music, man. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Let's get him started then, Rob. Rob Stefano, why don't you give us number 5? We're doing the top 5 psychedelic songs of the 60s. And what's your number 5?
My number 5 is a gentleman who was originally inspired by Bob Dylan. I would call him the British Bob Dylan at one point. And then he sort of carried it over and became psychedelic folk almost. And the person I picked was Donovan. And I believe it or not, I mean, a lot of his songs probably could have been on this list.
Oh, good Lord, yes.
And the one that I eventually focused on was Hurdy Gurdy Man. And I picked that because it's got harpsichords in it, it's got sitars, and the most important thing of all, it during those sessions I found out was the first time that Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, and John Bonham played together.
Oh, wow.
They played on the sessions of that. And I believe John Paul Jones and Jimmy Page are on the final song. But yeah, Donovan has been quoted as saying he sort of introduced those guys to start with.
Someone's got to take credit.
Wow.
Interesting. Donovan Sunshine Superman was on my list.
Yeah, I actually had.
And then it kind of came. It went to the honorable mentions, and then it ended up dropping off the further down the rabbit hole I went. But Sunshine Superman was on from the beginning. I'm like, oh, like that's same type of thing. Donovan was kind of like that folky, trippy, wordplay type of psychedelia.
Yeah,
right.
Really surprised at just how many of his albums were the same type. In fact, he would get even more trippy with subsequent releases. And I particularly like this track, which I did have on my list, by the way. So I have to think of something else. But I love that sort of trembling voice in the beginning and the way he just kind of hums it into the song. And then he had his voice just, I guess he's trying to be like, it's like an effect, but I think it's his voice, his naked voice. He's just doing it. It's not, I don't think it's a recording technique. And I kind of dig that a lot. So he's, he himself is experimenting, not only just with the technology, but with his natural voice and things like that. So it's a great pick. Yeah.
Cool. Hurdy-gurdy man, Donovan.
Yep.
Eric, let's roll right into your number 5 then.
All right. So, I mean, the first 3 albums, I could pick any track off of the first 3 Moody Blues records.
Oh, Moody Blues.
And, of course, Days of Future Past. I mean, that entire album could, but one of my all-time favorite tracks from them is to our children's children, and that is Watching and Waiting. And it's this sort of, what really sells the whole psychedelic aspect of it is that mellotron that kicks in, that's spacey, but it's a slow sort of like almost gothic type of song. It's a beautiful song. Justin Hayward's vocal on it, I think, is amazing. I love the way he, the inflections. He gets a little bit more. He's typically is pretty straightforward in his singing. Like, it's just very even. But in this, he kind of like certain words are like emphasized. Like in that way. Like, and you'll see. If you've ever heard the track, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it's a beautiful, beautiful song, and it's just one of my favorite. But again, those 3. I mean, In Search of the Lost Chord. I mean, it's all pretty much in the same vein, and that stuff is just.
I thought about Moody's. I don't have it on my list. I was hoping you were going to say Tuesday Afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about that was the. I was like, but that's the obvious choice, but that entire album could be, again, but, and I really wanted to do Ride My Seesaw, but unfortunately, that's not the 60s. That's 70.
Yeah,
I was like, damn it, I missed it by a year, but that,
by that much.
Yeah, but that whole beginning with the whole like speech and the like the tarmac and all that stuff, and it just kicks into that track is just wonderful. But it's not 60s. So
the Moody's transition from that psychedelic to progressive.
We talk about long distance Voyager a lot from the 1981 record, and we say how much they sound like ELO. This particular track for me sounds like Genesis. So there's like early Genesis, that heavy metal mellotron that the mixed with the organ, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful track. So there you go. Cool. That's my first one.
Number 5. All right.
Yep.
My number 5 is from a group. It hit number 2 in 1968. It's from a group that sounds like they should be from the 50s. The name of the group sounds like they should be from the 50s.
Okay.
No?
Rascal?
No.
Tommy James and the Shondells.
Okay.
Sounds like a 50s doo-wop group.
Yes.
But their song Crystal Blue Persuasion is the ultimate chill out.
Yep.
Laying back and just like letting it's just got such a mood to it. Just kind of understated. It's a pop song, and most of mine are going to be pop or all of them. But yeah, it's just a really it was torn between this one and
Crimson and Clover.
No, Dragging the Line.
Oh.
Okay.
Dragging the Line has that famous lyric, hugging a tree when you get near it, which is where supposedly the term a tree hugger came from. It's from that song Dragging the Line. And that's really about that whole thing. But Crystal Blue Persuasion really has just that trippy feel to it. But it's a short song. They get in, he gets out. Tommy James has a really good voice too.
Yeah.
But when I always heard that group name when I was younger, I'm like, oh, they're from the 50s, like it's like a 50s group. Shondells, it's like, but no, late 60s, ton of hits. Tommy James got involved with the label he was on, I believe, was owned by the mafia. So he had a lot of problems getting he got screwed out of a lot of money, a lot of royalties. They would give him money when he needed it or asked for it.
Yeah,
he wasn't getting paid like that, so he got screwed really, really badly. A guy probably lost millions of dollars on those recordings. But Crystal Blue Persuasion, number 5.
Damn it! Now I'm down by 2. I need another.
We're gonna give Eric some internet search time. So
oh my God!
I'll talk slowly for number 4. Go ahead,
Okay.
give us number 4, but stretch it out a little bit. If you got some history of the song, Rob, give it to us so Eric can.
Mhm.
What do you got for number 4?
For number 4, I'm going with a mainstream guitarist who everybody knows, who like Donovan, probably could have had more than a few songs here on this list. And I decided to go with Jimi Hendrix. Are You Experienced?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at the list of that album. That album's got tons of great songs on it, and the Are You Experienced? It has the reverse recorded drums and guitar on that sound so phenomenal, and it just makes that whole song with his lyrics and everything. And it is a little bit of a trippy song, but it's also hardcore Jimmy as well. You know?
Yeah, and he was steeped into that because he kind of came to prominence right in the middle of the psychedelia.
Yeah,
it's interesting to think about what his career might have been like once he got past that, because all those groups, no one, this was a very short-lived genre as well, kind of like we talked about punk rock recently, Eric, where it was a kind of a short-lived genre. It was intense, but it was short.
Yeah,
psychedelia was kind of the same thing. It dribbled a little bit into the early 70s, but like we said, like the Moody's and these other bands that were around that were dabbling in that kind of transformed and changed with the times. Would have been interesting to see what Hendrix, probably would have gone to a more bare bones, stripped down, raw sound than the experimentation that was going. I'm sure that was a launching pad for other things, but it would have been interesting to see what.
I especially would have.
Clapton was the same thing, right? With Cream.
I especially would have liked to have seen what he would have done in the 80s, Hendrix. When you had the likes of Prince, who I feel like almost like he could have been
spiritual successor.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Prince was almost like he took the torch from Hendrix,
because he was a hell of a guitar player.
Hendrix and Sly Stone. He's like a combination of those two artists.
I mean, we know those songs, but were all the sort of the tools of the day. But boy, was he a hell of a guitar player, Prince. I mean, he's just right up there. That would have been something.
Yeah, but first, Eric, before we get to number 4, I have to ask you a question. But first, are you experienced?
Not necessarily.
Have you ever been experienced?
So your pick was what was the track you picked? I'm sorry, Rob.
Are you experienced?
Are you experienced?
Or experience? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you got, Eric? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
So my next track is actually a cover, as I mentioned. It's the Harper's Bazaar version of 59th Street Bridge song, "Feeling Groovy." There's no doubt that they have a pretty, Simon and Garfunkel's. I don't know if their version of the song has the same meaning, but I think this group really took it in that opposite direction.
Yeah.
You hear it in a lot of movies. They, always like this sort of whenever somebody's taking drugs and it's one of those like really almost bubblegum pop songs, but yet so effective. And especially when those harmonies kick in at the end there, that really takes you on that, that journey right there. And it's, I actually prefer this version over Simon and Garfunkel's. But yeah, it's definitely one of my, when I immediately go, Crystal Blue Persuasion was yours. This was immediately like a top of my head was, one of my go-to picks, of course, So,
the Simon and Garfunkel version is just like this little happy little ditty kind of a thing. But it's on a whole other meaning when it's reinterpreted in a different genre
with those instruments, with that, with that production. And it takes you on a completely slightly different journey, maybe a little bit more on the nose or on, on the head, hitting it on the head. But yeah, absolutely.
There's an extension of that. I'll put a link in the show notes. I think there's on YouTube. There's a video of Liberace singing that song, and he's dressed in like a hippie outfit, and they have like the hippies dancers next to him, and he comes kind of like strolling out. He's like, "Slow down, you move too fast." Like,
oh my God,
and he's talking about being hip and finding the scene, but it's Liberace. And all the 60s dancers are around. It's like in bright colors and all that, of the 60s. And it's Liberace wearing
so
like
was this
tunic.
on Hullabaloo?
I don't know what it was on, and I don't know what they were on. So we'll put a link in the show notes, and I'll email it to you guys after we're done.
Oh man, I need to see that.
It's the most unhippest thing you could ever see in your life. And once you've seen it, you can't ever unsee it. So,
okay. My
number 4 hit number 1 in 1966. It is considered psychedelic, although you'd probably be like, what's so psychedelic about it? It's Summer in the City by Lovin' Spoonful.
Great choice.
Which again it's not specifically about trippiness, but it's in its presentation, it's very psychedelic in its instrumentation and its arrangement. And it's one of those songs. It's an evergreen. I think it's so underrated. Also, Summer in the City. I think it's just from John Sebastian's vocal performance, and then just to the way the instrumentation is. I think it's a song that was ahead of its time. It almost sounds like it could be from the 70s.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's not very dated, but it is listed as being a psychedelic pop. Again, probably just because of the swirling production and everything that's going on with it. One of the first songs to make use of a lot of sound effects too.
Yeah,
they have the guy with the jackhammer and the traffic. They kind of went out and recorded that and brought that back in to create the audio landscape. So,
no, I thought of that myself, and I almost had it on my list, but no, but that's a great choice though. I totally think it fits the bill, no doubt. Because it's telling a story too. It's setting, the imagery alone that song evokes, and you think of New York City, you're thinking of that hot, blazing sun, but people, maybe dancing in the streets, whatever the hell they were doing, and at that time, it's definitely of its time. So
and it's kind of I like you said, I like the visuals that he paints, because then John Sebastian's like at night, it's a different world. Go out and find a girl. Like it's kind of like he really does kind of give you the heat that's coming through during the day, but then at night everything's opened up to you, and you can kind of do go grab a girl and go out, and the city is different at night. It's a different thing. The hustle and bustle is different. So that's number 4 for us. Rob. Number 3, we're blazing through these, but we have a couple of honorable mentions. But what is your number 3?
My number 3 goes along with my my love for guitar players.
Alrighty,
as you can see,
theme.
And I zeroed in on the Yardbirds, and the song I picked was "Happenings 10 Years Time Ago."
Okay.
Ready?
I know that when Eric Clapton was with the Yardbirds, one of the reasons why he left is because they were getting away from their bluesy sound and going into different genres of music. And Happening 10 Years Time Ago was actually the first recording they did with Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page on a song together. So that was what drew me to it. And plus, it's a great song. And it definitely has that trippiness to it that the Yardbirds didn't have in the beginning, where they were more like a blues band. Whereas Happenings 10 Years Time Ago, it sort of brought them into this genre of music. It's a great song.
Cool. Yeah. It's again, it's bands that were around before kind of evolved into it. They went through their psychedelic phase. Right, so like the Yardbirds and even the Stone, like all the all those bands, they kind of followed these waves. They were really very few, I think, didn't change what they were doing. They all, like, as you got into that mid to late 60s, every band started to kind of branch out into a little bit more. You could call it more experimental, Eric, I guess, right? you could put psychedelic in there, but it was just more of an experimental sound, which then made it pushed the boundaries of what they were normally doing. So yeah, I guess you could, at the time, psychedelic, right?
It's ironic too, because, Eric would be like, no, I don't like this sort of moon pop direction. And yet he goes, he gets into Cream and they do exactly that. There's several songs that are in that vein.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he thought it was, I was just going to be a blues band or whatever. But no, with Jack Bruce, and he took it in a completely different direction with Pete Brown's lyrics, and so. And
that's what was just going on at the time. So you almost couldn't get away from it, even if you tried. It was still finding its way in. It was still seeping in. So on that note, what do you have for number 3, Eric?
My number 3 is undisputed. I mean, you can't not have. You cannot have Pink Floyd on the list. Set the controls for the Heart of the Sun. Yeah. That I mean, it's a what can I say? I mean, it's, I could have went with Interstellar Overdrive, all 10 minutes of it, but it's too long. We could have used the edited version from Doctor Strange, I suppose, but this song, this really, to me, is like, come on, once you put it on, it has that sort of foreboding mood to it, and it's those drums that kind of kick in, and it's like all throughout it, and just the flourishes of sound. This was like pre Dark Side of the Moon, so we're talking probably one of the trippiest stuff that they did. Sid Barrett, yeah, definitely, yeah.
The interesting thing about Pink Floyd too is they kind of took that into the 70s with them too.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They were like one of the one bands that did it successfully,
Well, Roger Waters never forgot Sid Barrett. Sid Barrett was with him body and soul. I mean, through, the whole recording process of Dark Side and Wish You Were Here. Wish You Were Here is about Sid Barrett pretty much. I mean, that whole like Shine On You Crazy Diamond, it's about him. But the early stuff, there's some really, really good gems here, and this is one of them. This is like probably around a 5-6 minute range, but it definitely has that flow. People might skip over.
Give us the title again.
Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun. Yeah.
Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun.
Yeah. So
easily going to be the longest title.
Set
the Controls for the Heart of the Sun.
Yeah.
Sounds like something Kirk would say.
Yeah.
Squarely,
it's spacey, it's trippy. It is, it's everything you would come to expect from Pink. You would think like a lot of the prog bands of that time in the 70s were doing like, really going all out. In their earlier stuff, it was more sort of poppy and lighter. Not here. This is something that is, from the get-go, extreme Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
It really, even their early stuff was just, and it, unlike any other thing that I had heard,
cool,
in that vein. So yeah,
right.
It's I could not have put this on there. So I apologize if it's a little too long, but there it is.
You can't go wrong with Pink Floyd.
No, you're making me feel so inadequate now. After that big build up, and this is the one, it can't be, and then I'm going to come in with Age of Aquarius and Let the Sun Shine In from the Fifth Dimension.
What's wrong with that?
Which hit number one.
Fantastic. Oh, it's fantastic.
Psychedelic Soul. I mean,
there you go. Yeah.
This hit all that stuff. Age of Aquarius, and it's got the lyrics, but it's got great vocals. This stuff could all, Eric proves the point that, and Rob too, that, the stuff could be esoteric, but it can also be very accessible.
Yeah.
Also, they can take the same aesthetic and just rework it, and that's what you get with Age of Aquarius from the play Hair, and then they have Let the Sun Shine In, so it's kind of like a little medley thing, and you got Marilyn McCoo, who's got a great voice, and it's just it's just a really great song. It's kind of like, it's actually like uplifting psychedelic, It's not warnings. Usually psychedelic songs are like warning you of something. Beware.
Yeah.
Look out for this. Look out for this and that kind. They're kind of like a foreboding with some psychedelic stuff. Darker themes.
Yeah.
But this one is it's like, hey, the dawning of the age of Aquarius, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a fun pop psychedelic song,
but no less, again, the way, just in the effects and the it definitely, these songs, a lot of times people would tend to use the poppier stuff for drug induced stories, like, that you see, like anytime there's a crime thing with drugs. I mean, it's always the pop stuff they go for. Donovan and like I said, Harper's Bazaar and things like that. So they're not going to put Pink Floyd in that vein. It might maybe get 2 seconds of it or something in the background, But to prove the point, it definitely has that effect.
Those needle drop moments. Yeah,
and as you say, on a more accessible, much more accessible level, so that everybody can be, but experience that feeling, of like just that little bit of weirdness to it. That it's just, it's great. That's a great choice. No, that's a fantastic track. Yeah, there you go.
Approval. Cool. All right, we're barreling to number 2. Rob, are you pulling out a number 2 from your? Are these in any order, or are you just kind of cherry picking from what you got?
There's sort of it, yeah.
Okay.
There's sort of an
number
order.
One's going to be like your big one.
My number 1 was my number 1 from the start.
Got it. Okay, good. All right.
My number 2 is hopefully I'm not stepping on toes with this one.
Let's see.
But it's also from this band. It's from my favorite album by them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Inspired by Timothy Leary's with LSD and everything. And it's Tomorrow Never Knows by the Beatles.
Ah.
Hope I wasn't stepping on toes there.
We'll find out. We shall.
The Revolver album is my favorite Beatles album.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah.
I think everybody always says Sgt. Pepper, and I think Revolver was 10 times better than it. And Tomorrow Never Knows is one of my favorite songs off of that album. And I love the whole feeling and aura of that song. You know, the craziness. It's sort of like a droning song, but it's got like all those weird noises coming in and stuff. And the lyrics with it. I mean, you could almost, not that I've ever done it, but you could almost see yourself taking LSD with that song. It's like there's just something about that song. It just brings you in, and I love that song.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Highly experimental at the time, right, Eric? I mean,
it's a miracle. Well, it's a miracle of recording too. I mean, they only recorded that on 4 tracks. So think about all the sound effects and the looping and all of that stuff that's happening just on 4 tracks. It's an amazing piece of
backwards tape,
recording. Yep. I mean, this pretty much, if there's ever an example of what the Beatles were capable of, especially in this stage before Sgt. Pepper, with using a more lush, with strings and all this stuff. But, this by itself, it's a masterpiece of a song. And that's a great choice. And yes, it was on my list. Of course, it actually was my number 1. But wow. No, Rob, it's fine. It's good. It's all good. I got something else.
The subtitle of this episode will be Eric's Devastation. Because we're both just chipping away. Strategically chipping away at his list.
Yeah.
I guess what we're probably due maybe later this year for a Beatles episode. So it'll probably be Revolver, I would guess. We'll get Robin. Since we had another Rob for Abbey Road, we had Rob Prisman. We'll get Rob DiStefano for Revolver.
Nice.
So we'll probably get to that at some point. All right. Eric,
it's my turn. Yeah. Okay.
Do you have anything left? The remnants? Do you have anything left from the remnant, the tattered remnants?
You're gonna love this one, and you're gonna think, Dean, I'm probably out of my mind for picking it, but I will argue with anybody that if you don't think that this is trippy, if you don't think this is in the vein, it is the title from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Ennio Morricone's score on this album is trippy. That's the reason why he's such a genius at the time. This was a revisionist Western. When you listen to this soundtrack, it's out there. I mean, it puts you on another planet. You're not in the West. You're on another planet in the West. I mean, this, the way it's recorded, the reverb on it, it really takes you there. I almost picked Ecstasy of Gold, which, again, that could be another great choice, but I kind of like this one more. It's a little bit more trippier than, but give it a shot, man. Listen to it in this context. And I think you'll agree that I think it works. I don't know if anybody's ever made this point before, but I firmly believe that that's what made him so unique.
So the theme music,
from the good to the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay. The main theme.
He's one of my favorite. Movie music guys. I love all the stuff he's done. Yeah.
It's over the top. It's a little bit over the top, but in this case, it's 66, 67 around that time.
Right there.
So we're right smack in the middle of psychedelia. So he's adding that to this sun-soaked, really, when you watch the movie, that grittiness, that everything about it, it's just I think it works. Yeah. It's dirty, but it's amazing. Yeah. Even the stuff before, like the other two movies he did. The Dollars trilogy, that stuff is great too. The whistling and the whole but it's spacey. Yeah, I think it works.
Yeah, again, it was nothing was safe from the influence.
Yeah, right.
Of even what would be a traditional Western, which would normally have the dun 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 dun.
Yeah, or the harmonica, or
something different.
Right, exactly.
And being influenced and probably with the intent of hopefully reaching that younger audience, right? If they only wanted old people to go see that movie, they'd have a traditional score, but
right,
having something experimental like that like you said, kind of changes the complexion of it, and how you approach it. So it'll be interesting to hear it within the confines. My number two, both of you guys have done the obscure stuff. Let's be honest. And I've been on the straight and narrow. Now it's my turn to get a little obscure, although I'm not getting very obscure. If Eric knows me, this is not very obscure, but this song did not chart in the United States, but it hit number 2 in the UK.
Okay.
It was the very first song to be played on BBC One when it launched, the BBC One radio station. When it launched, this was the very first song that they chose to play. And it's a song called Flowers in the Rain by The Move.
Okay.
And The Move.
I knew you were going to pick them.
in this, well, it was just a matter of what song. So in this early incarnation of The Move, they were purely psychedelic pop.
Yeah.
Song titles like I Can Hear the Grass Grow.
Right. Brontosaurus.
Night of Fear. Kilroy was here. Wild Tiger Woman. They were firmly doing, it was psychedelic pop, and the lyrics were like that. But Flowers in the Rain is just like a perfect trippy pop song again. But The Move were really good at it. They were really good at making pop songs, but using the psychedelic elements, production, songwriting. They had everybody in the group was a vocalist, so they had multiple tool player that they can get people for different types of songs. Or sometimes you'd hear 3 vocalists or 4 vocalists on one song.
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat. So hit number 2 in the UK. Not a big splash here, but it's very accessible, very easy to listen to. And fun. The Move was trippy stuff, but it was just fun. It was their early stuff was really fun to listen to. It was just kind of it was such good, well-made pop music that it was. Blackberry Way could have been another one. That could have been an easy entry. I always like I Can Hear the Grass Grow because it's just a great title.
Yeah,
that tells you everything about psychedelia. Is I can hear the grass grow. It's like you're tripping and things of that out there. That's number 2. Before we get to number 1, I should have done it. I thought about it too late. One of the interesting things about this whole psychedelic thing also was like the new bands that popped up and some of the names, like I said in the intro, Strawberry Alarm Clock, Harper's Bazaar. The most interesting one I read was the chocolate wristwatch. I mean, that tells like the chocolate wrist, like it was just like, let's put words together.
Oh man.
Right? It's just kind of like, let's put words together and it'll the more non-compatible they are, the better, because that's the weirder it sounds.
Mm-hmm.
So that was part of the fun in doing the research, was these obscure bands, but the weird names that they would have too. It's just like totally inspired by what was going on. It's like it was like the weirder, the better. Iron Butterfly, right?
Yeah,
same thing. Just words that are contrasting with each other.
Right.
Put them together, it makes like Strawberry Alarm Clock. It makes sense. It's like, oh yeah, Strawberry Alarm Clock. Okay.
I read on that they what did they do? They got Strawberry from the Beatles' Strawberry Fields, and they couldn't think of how to complete it. And one of the guys in the band looked up on the wall, and there was an alarm clock. He goes, "Hey, Strawberry Alarm Clock."
There you go. Sometimes it's that easy. All right, so we're ready. We're ready for number one. So, Rob, you're saying this number one is bona fide?
I think it is.
For you. Okay, for you. That's fine. We're not going to hold you to. We're not going to pull this episode out 4 years later and then put you on the witness stand. So, but go ahead, go for it. Let's hear your number one.
It's actually going around full circle from the first podcast I did with you guys.
Oh, wait. The first podcast you did with us.
Oh,
and
jeez.
it features one of my favorite members of this band.
Well, it was Rolling Stones. Wait, Rolling Stones was the first podcast you did with us.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember at least that much.
And it's from probably one of their least liked albums, their Satanic Majesty's Request.
Okay.
And it's 2,000 Light Years from Home.
Okay.
To me, it screams psychedelic. It's trippy. It's got a good rhythm to it, and I love the mellotron on that from Brian Jones. It makes that complete song.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a song that they originally didn't have mellotron on, and they weren't happy with it. And when Brian Jones put down the mellotron on that, they said, "Oh, that made it. This is it." And it's my favorite song from that album, and it's one of my Rolling Stone songs that is up there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not top 10, but it's definitely one of my go-to songs for the Stones.
Do you think Satanic Majesty's Request, you think that was the breakaway point for the Stones from emulating the Beatles? Because it was very much, at least the cover was kind of like Sgt. Peppery, right? Was that the one where kind of, and they were always in the shadow of the Beatles, always kind of one step behind. And I think at this point,
I've read that they sort of realized that they were trying to copy the Beatles too much.
Yeah.
And after that, they sort of went a little more bluesy rock. And they definitely went a way different direction.
Yeah, I think they found their niche. I mean, I think they found what the Stones were supposed to be. Is not in the shadow of the Beatles, but their own entity with their own specific sound. And they had the benefit of outlasting the Beatles, so they were able to really kind of hone in on that. The 70s is really when, the Stones really kind of honed in on something.
Right.
For all the problems they were having, but 2,000 Light Years from Home. Right?
Yeah.
Nice.
That's your number one. Rolling Stones. He's calling it back to his first appearance. Bringing it over. So does that mean this is your last appearance?
No.
Maybe you were handing
Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
You were handing in your papers.
Never again. Never.
I need a certified letter from you. No, we don't let anybody go that easy.
Yeah.
You don't walk away from us. We walk away from you. Anyway, I don't know what I'm saying. Okay, Eric, number one. Now that we've ravaged and totally torn to tatters your list and destroyed the whole foundation your list was built on, do you have something?
I do. I actually do. Of course I do. And I'm going to go with, I don't think it's as psychedelic as their earlier stuff. And it's maybe the band that you were referring to that you shied away from. And of course, it's Cream.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with Badge. Their last, Goodbye album. He co-wrote this song. Eric co-wrote this with George Harrison. And since Tomorrow Never Knows was my favorite, my number one, I replaced it with this one. So
nice.
I initially didn't have Cream. I actually had Hendrix on my list as well. I had Red House because I love that blues and that psychedelic blues as a perfect, sexy, but it takes you somewhere. But anyway, I digress. Badge, it's just an odd song. I just love the way it ends. It ends on and it does, like, what does it mean? Like, they're just making up words on the fly. And this, of course, was his response to George inviting him to play on While My Guitar Gently Weeps. So this was, Cream's goodbye, farewell. So he's like, oh, I'm going to reciprocate and have George, so he actually co-wrote the song, wrote the bridge, that guitar that comes in, that's George Harrison, that's fuzzy guitar, you can definitely tell. But I just love it. I think it's as good as any other Cream. I kind of thought of I Feel Free or Tales of Brave Ulysses, things like that. But that stuff tends to have that same, I don't know, like a lot of like psychedelic songs sort of sound like those songs as well. So who did it first? What, who's copying who? You know what I mean? So it's like this to me was an odd, sort of an outlier. It was just sort of like out there, and it's just weird enough to kind of slide right in there. So there it is. Yeah.
Cool.
Badge.
I read that the title of that song, Badge, was from when they were writing the song. Eric Clapton had written Bridge because they were going to do the bridge.
Yeah.
And George Harrison was looking at it upside down, and he said, Badge, what's Badge? And that's why they decided to name the song Badge.
Well, I mean, there you go. There it is. Right there in a nutshell. That's the reason why it's on this list. I mean, they're both pretty
enough.
Pretty fucked up at the time, I'm sure. So, yeah.
Yeah, to me, you kind of alluded to it, Eric. It's kind of a song that just ends like without resolution. It's just kind of like, it's just kind of like, where's the outro? Like, what,
No, right. And of course, in concert, he would extend it out. But, but just the way it ends, it's just like, what the hell was that?
Like they just walked away, like they stopped playing.
They stopped playing. And that's what it feels like.
Kind of felt like that, So.
Yeah.
All right, my number one, I'm surprised it made it. Both of you scared me a couple of times. I'm surprised I made the journey to number one. This came out in 1966. It hit number 24. This is cited as the first bona fide psychedelic song. This is what's being cited as like this started everything going. And the only way to listen to it is if you go 8 Miles High.
Oh, there it is.
By the Byrds.
Rob, I thought for sure you were going to pick this one.
It's on my list.
Okay.
It's on my list.
Trippiest of the trippy. It's got the great guitar stuff in the beginning with the, bam, 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 bam. Then it's like, it's really messy. And
it's like,
like you know what's going on. It makes you uncomfortable because it's so messy.
They're also, I think, one of the first bands to use an electric 12-string in a song.
Yeah, that distinct Rickenbacker high-pitched twang. Like, I don't know what it is, but you definitely get it. And it's...
But then you have this great folk rock vocals laid on top of this weird style of music. So it sounds so great. The vocals sound so great because it's the Byrds. You got Roger McGuinn, you got David Crosby in there, Chris Hillman, you got Gene Clark. All these great vocalists kind of laying on top of that, but then having this really experimental thing. I saw a version of it like on like the Midnight Special or one of those things. It was like they did it in the 70s, and it was 8 minutes long. And they actually never sang a lyric. It was just all like free form, like guitar. I'm like, when is this song? I know you're kind of noodling. The whole thing was like 8 minutes. They never sang a lyric, a lick of a vocal.
Yeah.
It was just 8 minutes long. I'm like, I don't know what I just watched. Maybe that was the intent, was for me to come away baffled.
Yeah.
Because I had no clue.
That's a great choice.
All right, there's the top 5. Now, Eric, I'm surprised I left off of my lists for you. Can you guess what I left off my list? Because I thought for sure you've mentioned this group in the past.
Okay.
Now if I say it, you're gonna be like, oh God, I forgot.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The Zombies. I thought for sure you would have something by the Zombies on there.
I did.
Okay.
I had Time of the Season, Odyssey and Oracle.
Yeah.
Great record.
For sure.
I just sort of, I maybe it's just because I hear it so much. It's sort of in, but yeah, I thought about it. It was there. But, so you're saying it's not on your list, so you don't have it?
No,
right?
yeah, I didn't. I stayed away. I was kind of like this. That's Eric's territory. I'll leave him. Let him pick something that appropriate for it. Because I would just pick the hit.
I mean, you could choose. I mean, any one of those songs off of that record is
prime real estate for that.
That is their magnum opus psychedelic album. I mean, it's one of the top rated, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But
standard bearer of the era. Yeah. Okay. That's our top 5. Make sure that you're giving us your top 5. Hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Your podcast provider should have a message us thing there. We're going to roll into. We'll do just a couple of honorable mentions. We'll give everybody else some room for their stuff. So, Rob, what do you got for honorable mention number 1?
This one I came across. I'd never heard this song until I started investigating this stuff.
Uh-oh.
And the thing that drew it to me was the name of the band. And it's Ultimate Spinach. and the name of the song is Mind Flowers.
There you go.
It is a trippy, haunting type song, but I actually got into it. It was a really good song. They're a band from Boston. I had never heard it before, and I happened to come across it on YouTube. I said, Ultimate Spinach. I go, what the heck is that? I go, let me listen to it. And they're actually pretty good.
See,
the problem they said, though, I was reading up on them, is they said that they came in at the tail end of the psychedelic era, so it was sort of going away when they were coming in. Mm-hmm. That's why they never really made it big.
They missed the boat.
Ultimate Spinach.
I don't know what that evokes. A giant can of spinach, a lot of spinach, a vast amount. It's Ultimate Spinach. That could be tied.
And if you hear that song, it's very trippy. It's like a haunting melody. It's pretty good.
Yeah, is it on Spotify?
I think so. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So it's absolutely going to be on there. So Eric, what do you got for an honorable mention?
All right, here's a weird one for you. I kind of dug into, and prep for this, I kind of dug into some Mothers of Invention.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we're only in it for the money.
Mm-hmm.
So this song is called "Take Your Clothes Off When You Dance." Yeah, I mean, this is it's almost as if he's actually making fun of the genre. That's what it feels like to me.
Probably.
Because it's so out there, so avant-garde. I mean, the speeded up vocals, the whole, it's just so weird and just purposely so. And it may be just, sort of, like I said, I think he's just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to, it's almost like a parody of psychedelia. And it could be, I don't know, but it's weird enough that it made the list, and so that's why it's there. I mean, it's just so bizarre. Some of the shit, it's just it's not an album that I would listen to probably off the record or anything like that. But it's just but he was an oddball.
Yeah,
Zappa. He was
no
just
problem
definitely
thumbing his nose at genres though. Also, and kind of giving him a little tweak. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was kind of.
Yeah,
fooling around with the notions.
Yeah,
of it, but we'll get to hear it. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yep,
it's honorable mention. My first honorable mention. I was going to have a Beatles song, but since we did it, we're good. This song is I'm attracted to it, but it's so creepy. Also, and it's
okay.
The Crazy World of Arthur Brown, and the
there you go.
Fire.
That was on my list too.
That's a great one.
It's so like his vocal is just like he sounds like he's in an insane asylum. It's just got that weird feel to it.
When I first saw that song,
the video with his head on fire with the crown
on MTV, I was like, "What the heck is this?"
Yeah, it's just unsettling. And he actually had that thing made. The only thing that he had underneath he used to wear this thing they'd put alcohol or sterno in it or whatever and would light it on fire. So it would have like a crown that's flaming. There's only a piece of leather underneath the metal. And that didn't do that good of a job of like dispersing the heat that was on his head. And he used to get very, I was expecting to read when I was reading about it that he got burnt, but he just had a lot of discomfort from it as a result because, there's really nothing holding back that heat. And he's like dancing around. That video is just like creepy. And it's just like, so like the visuals, the song on its own is creepy. It starts off, I am the god of hellfire.
Yeah.
I sing you. And then it's like fire. Dun, 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 dun. It's like this weird, like loungy song about fire and you're going to burn. Yeah. But it's very loungy also sounding because it's got horns in it. You're gonna burn. It's like,
he's like one of the first guys to wear like makeup.
Yeah, he had the whole thing going on, and he's like dancing like weird, like he's at Burning Man or something.
I also read that Pete Townsend produced that song.
He did?
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the interesting part about that, I had also read about that song that he originally intended that song to be part of like a rock opera. And it's funny that Pete Townsend produced it.
I'm not surprised. Yeah.
And Pete Townsend eventually, is the king of rock opera.
Yeah, I read that too. And the record company was like, this is just too dark. We can't sell like a whole album like that. So I believe the first side of the album is kind of some of the concept stuff he was working on.
Yeah. Okay.
But his label's like, we can't do this whole thing like this. Sorry. Arthur Brown in your crazy world. we can't do it all, but they did do enough of it, and then Fire was just very unsettling. So it's probably like bad trip music, like that really like messed people up probably when they heard it. All right, let's do at least one more. Let's do one more.
I think we could do two more. I got two more.
Let's see how quickly we go if time allows.
Yes. Okay.
Rob, what do you got for another honorable mention?
All right, this one I was actually very surprised that nobody had this one on there because I figured everybody would pick this one. And it was one of the first that I actually thought of when I was thinking of this. And it's White Rabbit by Jefferson Airplane.
Yeah. It's on my honorable mentions as well because I didn't want it to be so obvious as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And you can't not have that on a psychedelic list. It's got to be on there.
Sure.
It's probably the top of the heap, right? I mean, it is probably the...
Oh, sure. Yeah.
The one.
For sure. Like top three, top tier. Yeah, no doubt. Yep.
From the eerie, echoey guitar in the beginning, just the solo guitar,
and it's one of those songs that it just keeps building up as it goes along.
Yeah.
There's no, it's
the intensity and Grace Slick's vocal on that, just the stuff she does with her vocal cords.
But see, that's the thing. It's one of those songs, though, that really where they're going with it. I mean, the lyrics just suggest that, and it just so sometimes you just want to kind of dive into something that's just odd sounding, like that just that could fit the bill, and they weren't really trying to do. Maybe it's just more experimental versus this is a song about taking drugs or whatever. So there's little room for both, I feel. And that's why we don't, or at least we don't choose to pick the most obvious choices sometimes, so. I was kind of leaving it. I much like Rob, I thought, somebody might take White Rabbit, so I'll put it. Yeah. If not, we'll get to it anyway. But because that's a slam dunk song that absolutely needed to be on the list. So if you guys didn't, I would have, because it's probably somebody probably would have, complained. Why isn't that on there? So it's there.
it's there. Absolutely. So what do you have for an honorable mention, Eric?
Isn't it Rob's choice?
No, he just did White Rabbit.
Oh, you did White. I'm sorry.
Are you tripping?
Okay. I am tripping. This is an interesting pick because, I picked the Rascals,
Hmm.
a song called Place in the Sun. It's from the Grooving album,
Mhm.
which came out a year before they actually did a psychedelic album called Once Upon a Dream.
Yeah.
1967. And I think it's a concept record, if I'm not mistaken. But I really liked, the sort of precursor that, they're planting the seeds of what was to be, I think, on that record with songs like this one, A Place in the Sun. It has that trippy organ. It's just enough there. It is a poppy type of song. It's kind of like, you're kind of tripping down like the lane kind of thing, like it's just enough there for me to have that nice brushstroke of psychedelia. And I think that, I think it works. So I thought that was actually further up on my list, but I just kind of, put it down on the honorable mention. I think it,
Rascals dabbled in that, in like probably more of the oral landscaping that they would do, because their vocals were spot on. It wasn't that. It was what they would do with the music, how they would interpret the music and put their vocals on it. So Rascals, you would think, oh, it's just kind of Blue Eyed Soul or whatever, but no, they were doing People Got to Be Free. They were doing a lot of stuff after their, It's a Beautiful Morning style stuff that was a little more socially conscious as well. And also experimenting.
The song has that, a little bit of that. We'll find our place in the sun, because, we're all going to be okay type of thing. And it's sort of that optimism of the time as well, So I think it's a great track. And again, that's just that trippy organ that sells it. Yeah. That kind of puts it over the top there. So
Felix Cavalieri.
Yep. There.
I got to see him a few years ago and he sounded fantastic.
Oh, great.
It's really good. So, all right. My second honorable mention, I'm going to go into a group that I thought somebody else would have, so I left it off the list. It's the Dark Princes of psychedelic music, The Doors.
Oh,
I didn't think anybody would have any Doors. I thought somebody would. So, after it became The Doors, then it became, well, what song? By the Doors? The one I landed on is Who Scared You? By The Doors, which is on Weird Scenes Inside the Gold Mine. It was recorded during the Soft Parade sessions. And I've always been attracted. The first time I heard the song, I've always been attracted to it.
Yeah.
Morrison singing in that lower baritone voice throughout the whole song.
Yeah.
The lyrics are a little trippy, but, they were, the Doors were moving away from that. Their first 2-3 albums were really that psychedelic stuff. And then they were evolving into a blues band. And this kind of skirts the line a little bit. It's straight ahead kind of rock, but it is still a little psychedelic with its lyrical content. So, and it's just a good one. I could have done, Hello, I Love You, any of those, but this is still accessible enough. It's not the weird 10-minute Doors song. It's like 3 minutes. There's a cut down version, but I found on Weird Scenes Inside the Gold Mine, it's the full version, which is it's less than 4 minutes long. So I don't know why they would edit the song for CD releases. It makes no sense because it wasn't a radio hit. So there'd be no reason for an edit, but they did. But you're going to get the full Who Scared You by The Doors.
Nice.
The best Doors song you've probably never heard. We'll put it there. So let's do one more. See if we can roll through one more. Rob, what do you got for your third?
Let me think. It's out of two of them that I'm thinking of, and I'm going to go with, since you mentioned Blue Eyed Soul, I'm going to go with Steve Winwood and Traffic and Dear Mr. Fantasy.
There you go.
I love that song. The keyboards in it and everything. It's an awesome song.
Stevie Winwood.
I love Steve Winwood's vocals too, guys.
Yeah, and that guitar solo.
Yeah,
he blew me away when they did that at Crossroads. I had never known that he could play guitar like that. Like what? Like why are you here? Don't you play keyboards for the most part? Like, I know he plays that he's great on the organ and whatever, but holy shit, I was blown away by that because Clapton even left the stage when, he wasn't even playing with him on that, that point. But
let him have it.
Oh my God. Yeah. Just fantastic. Yeah. Yeah.
Dear
Good
Mr.
stuff.
Fantasy. Traffic.
Yeah. Yep.
Felix Cavalieri, was he in Traffic?
Um,
I don't
I
think
what?
so.
Wait, no.
That's just it's a callback to a previous episode.
Yeah.
Rob, you didn't miss a joke. It wasn't an episode you were on. I was just calling back to a previous episode.
I knew where you're going with that. I knew where you're going.
Anyway, Eric, what do you have for a final?
All right. Well, again, this is one of those songs that you know it, you love it, and it could be definitely interpreted in that vein of just being. It's just a very happy song.
Mm-hmm.
But it just, and it's The Rain, the Park, and Other Things by the Cowsills. I mean, come on,
Nice.
it's trippy enough. The recording to really take you there. And I just love that echoey vocal. Like, is it, the harmonies? There's actually a really, really great version of it's like this was recently, like a few years ago on YouTube. You could find it, and they sound phenomenal. And it's the little girl has grown up, of course, and she's, and a couple of the members had died, and it was a tribute to him. But man, that they sound great. It's actually a little bit harder. But the vocals are there, and it's just really great. But this, you can't mistake that 60s trippy.
Yeah, it's got that
production.
Like when the song starts, it's just very like kind of.
It's like I love the Flower Girl. So yeah, of course, it's it needs to say what it needs to say. Their interpretation might be that this family band, sort of like they were the inspiration for the Partridge Family.
They were,
but you could definitely interpret it other ways, and I'm sure it's been used. I'm thinking of Dumb and Dumber, which
I think it was in that.
Yeah. But I'm sure it's been used in other things as well, and probably a little bit more, for something else. But there it is.
Yeah. And it goes to prove again there's something about family members that sing together. There's a certain frequency that they're on that other, that people that are not related, yes, can sound great. But again, the Cowsills, it was like 6 of them.
Yeah.
There were 7 family members. 1 didn't play, and then 6 of them did.
Yeah.
And tragedy, the guy, the lead singer, he was like the Brian Wilson. There's a great documentary about the Cowsills, not to get too far afield.
Yeah.
Great documentary about them. The tragedy, the stuff they went through, but then how they persevered through it.
Yeah.
The brother, the drummer, is actually the drummer for the Beach Boys now. He's not even with the Cowsills. He's not
really?
Bobby? Barry?
Yeah, okay.
One of the drummer is a Cowsill, but he's with the Beach Boys. Anyway, my final one, we'll wrap this up, it was recorded in 1969, but released in 1970. So it was recorded in 1969. And we're going with Spirit in the Sky by Norman Greenbaum.
Nice.
I do not it's got a great guitar riff. It's got typical lyrics, right? For that
typical lyrics.
Typical lyrics, right? Typical Spirit in the Sky lyrics that you kind of know what you're going to get once the song starts.
Yep.
And the guy Norman Greenbaum, it's like the most unassuming name it wasn't like Chocolate Wristwatch or Ultimate Spinach or Noah's Empty Ark. I don't know, whatever people I just made that one up. So you guys can take that. If you're an aspiring
that's a great
band,
name, man. We're gonna put a band together with that one.
Noah's Empty Ark. Norman Greenbaum. That's it. He just went with what worked, his name. And Spirit in the Sky is emblematic of 60s psychedelia, but obviously it came out in 70, although it was recorded in 69. And like Rob said earlier, we were already sun was already almost starting to set on that kind of stuff. The singer-songwriter thing was on the horizon. That was kind of coming up. That would be the next transition. In the early 70s was a little bit more of a mellow sound, introspective, and the kind of the psychedelic was kind of sunsetting, and then this other stuff was coming. So I think Spirit in the Sky is as fine as any of the stuff that was out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's one that everybody knows.
Great choice.
It's an easy one. So Yeah, that's going to do it for our top 5 psychedelic songs. You're going to find that we're going to have a link to that playlist on Spotify. So we'll put that in there. We'll also put a link to the Liberace video of him doing the Feeling Groovy song, it's 59th Street Bridge song, which is something once you see it, you can't unsee it. So look at your own risk. And I'm going to actually send these guys a link to, like, it's going to say like Led Zeppelin's first performance, and then it's going to be the Liberace video. So they think they're not going to be able to avoid it. They think it's something else. I'm going to Rickroll them, but I'm going to Liberace roll them. So Rob DeStefano, thank you so much for joining us. As always, we appreciate it.
Lots of fun. Lots of fun.
Yep. Lots of fun. More great. Top 5s to come. More episodes about films to come. Everything is here. And everything is behind us in the back room, too. So like I said, if you've made it this far, thanks for sticking with us. Go check out a whole bunch of other ones. Make sure that you follow us on your podcast provider so you get a little notification when those new episodes come out. So they're hot and ready, fresh out of the oven. You can enjoy them as soon as they come out, or wait a little bit. Have it like dessert. Get through your day. Check us out at the end on your way home. Either way, we appreciate it. We thank you for checking us out. For Rob, for Eric, this has been Dean, and we will catch you on the flip side.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast and on Twitter at 3324p to join the conversation.